Good evening, friends. Today, I am unboxing my new favorite thing. I didn't get the NES Classic Mini, because for anyone who hasn't been paying attention for the last several months, it sold out immediately, and there was just no way, to get it. I have an NES, I have most of the games that I want, and the ones that I do want, I could get for less than the price that I would have to pay for a scalped NES Mini on eBay or Craigslist or Amazon. So, when this guy came out, they had way more stock. I had a friend get me a copy of it, and I paid him, and I am very happy with this. And now we are going to unbox it together. This is the first video I've made in probably about 6 months. I had a kid, I had hand surgery, it's this weird little scar here. So yeah, I'm ready to start making videos again. And we are going to start with the SNES Classic. Well, first, before we open, let's take a look. We have 21 amazing games. Well, 19 amazing games. Most of these I've played. Obviously, Star Fox 2, I have not. I've never played Super Punch-Out. I have briefly played Super Ghouls and Ghosts. I've seen F-Zero played, but I've never actually played it. But, and I've never played Superstar. But the rest of these games I have played. Super Mario RPG and Earthbound, I didn't own. We rented those from Blockbuster. If you've seen my Earthbound fan art video, I told a story about how we rented Earthbound 3 times, and my dad got really upset because I wanted to rent it a 4th, and he said, "Well, you could have just bought it by now." And he's right, I could have, and those things are worth a bit more than any normal person can afford. So most of us have been emulating it, and now this is the first time since the 90s, I guess, that I've been able to afford a legal copy of it. So that's kind of nice. Obviously, anyone my age has played Street Fighter 2. This is the Turbo Edition, so it's got everything that we want. It's got the faster play, it's got more characters. I remember seeing Contra 3 on display, I think at Toys R Us, and just being blown away by it. My friend owned Final Fantasy 3, so I would watch him play when I would sleep over at his house. And then one day after he beat it, he finally let me borrow it, and I burned through it in about 5 days. This was during the summer, so, I had all the time in the world. We owned Kirby's Dream Course, which is a really fun, casual little mini golf game where you play as Kirby, and you gain the powers of the enemies that you would get in Kirby's Adventure and most subsequent Kirby releases. Donkey Kong Country I didn't own. I had a friend who owned it, and the platforming was just a little too advanced for me as a teenager, but he was perfectly at home. Mega Man X I borrowed from a different friend, and the opening sequence to that, the opening music to Mega Man X, it was so thrilling the first time I heard it, and every time I hear it now, I still get this same rush. There's something about the opening theme, where the X comes floating in and then goes ka-ching. It's great. It's just great. I didn't own Legend of Zelda, but again, I had a friend who owned it. This was the same one that owned Final Fantasy 3. But again, he eventually let me borrow it. We did have Super Mario World. I remember friends coming over during the summer and just all playing this game and trying to get all the secrets. And Star Road. It was so beautiful. The first time I saw this game, was right after it came out. I had a friend who bought a Super Nintendo right after it was released, and I tried to pretend I wasn't one of those jerks who would just go over to play Super Nintendo, but I was one of those jerks. He had this, and he had Darius got what was Darius Twin was the game that came out for the Super Nintendo, and I had never seen a fish themed shoot 'em up before, so that was pretty cool too. What else? Obviously, everyone had Mario Kart. Mario RPG, like I said, with Earthbound, we rented a couple of times, and we got all the way to the last boss, but we couldn't beat him, and we didn't have time to grind our way to a high enough level to do so. So we had to return it unfinished, and it wasn't until I emulated it, maybe 10 years later, that I actually got through to the ending. Secret of Mana, I had a different friend who won this one. I stayed at his house for a week in the summer, and all I wanted to do was play this game, and it really bummed him out. He also had Chrono Trigger, and so, that's conspicuously missing from this package. Chrono Trigger really would have put a nice... It would have been the cherry on the sundae. But anyway, enough of that. Let's open her up. Let's open up the Super Nintendo Classic. So, obviously, the real console was not that size. That would be silly. Okay. Standard cardboard packaging. They're really selling hard on Star Fox 2 here. And that's cool that it was never released, but there's another sequel that would have been equally cool. And that sequel is called Seiken Densetsu 3, or Secret of Mana 2. The first Seiken Densetsu was Final Fantasy Adventure on the Game Boy. So, I've been told that there is a poster that comes with this. I assume this is the poster. This is the slogan that was advertised during the early 90s for Super Nintendo games. Now you're playing with the superpower. Back in the heyday of the Nintendo Genesis rivalry. So, looks like this poster is not as exciting as I hoped it would be. It's basically just a big advertisement done in the style of an old Super Nintendo advertisement, like something you would see on a magazine, maybe, like in a copy of Nintendo Power. I see they're just selling their big franchises. Legend of Zelda, F-Zero, Star Fox, Mario Kart, Super Metroid, and Mario World. Super Metroid I didn't talk about yet, but I didn't play that game until after it's until the emulation days. That's when I played. And don't give me any trouble. I'll just go back in. There's a warranty in there. Who cares? I mean, obviously I'll care if it breaks, but for now, who cares? So, we've got our power supply. Oh, we've got a controller. The plastic has an interesting feel to it. got a bit of a matte finish. It feels, the texture is different from the original Super Nintendo controllers. The mold looks the same. It's the same size. I'm told that the concavity of these buttons isn't as pronounced as on the traditional one. But I mean, even a tiny amount of a concavity is enough to differentiate it between the convex A and B buttons. LNR feel good. They feel responsive. The D-pad feels very responsive. Start and select buttons, just kind of that generic sort of rubbery feeling. Got the cables apparently were a big problem on the NES Classic. I'm told that these are 6 foot, which is not as good as the original controllers, but way better than a 3 foot controller that requires an extension. This is USB. I assume this plugs into this power source. Yeah, the adapter here. The neat thing about this having USB here is that you can charge it on your Switch console if you have one. Or I guess you could just plug it in maybe into your laptop. I don't know. It comes with HDMI, that's good. Looks like that's maybe a 3 foot cable, but you know, who needs more than that? I suppose if your controllers weren't long enough, then you could always drag it away from the TV screen. Now for the piece de resistance. Look at how cute that is. Look at how cute that is. These buttons obviously have the same feeling despite their reduced size. The cartridge slot is obviously completely functionless. It's just an engraving in the plastic. This is a disappointment here. These don't actually work. I saw another unboxing of this, and I believe these are held in place by a plastic door. How do you get this off? It's kind of a pain. How do you do this? What is the secret? I don't want to break it. Will I break it if I open it? Oh my goodness. What do I do? I really don't want to bust it. Where's the hinge? Oh, there we go. So there's just this little bit of plastic in the middle here. That's ridiculous. This seems so flimsy. This seems like it's the first thing that would break. So you just pull that down. I guess the controllers plug into here. It's bizarre. That just does not want to go back in. Who designed this thing? There we go. Man, that just does not want to work. Ooh, I'm worried about that. Because I shouldn't be too worried, but I feel like I'm eventually just going to end up ripping that thing off. I don't know why they wouldn't just make the controller ports in the front. It would make so much more sense. Anyway. Oh, thank goodness it complies with Part 15 of the FCC rules. DC in, HDMI out. No composite, but that's okay. They're composite converters if you really need to play it on a CRT. But I think the point is not to play it on a CRT. And there's a scanline effect if you really want that. Okay. let's talk about wish lists. A lot of people complained about Chrono Trigger being missing from this. I feel their pain, but there are plenty of great games that are also missing. Let's go ahead and get this one out of the way now. Chrono Trigger. This is an amazing JRPG by Square, back before they adopted the horrible, terrible moniker of Square Enix. Square sounds great, Enix sounds great. Square Enix sounds terrible. Chrono Trigger really took the Super Nintendo to its limits. I mean, really, it did so much. The different endings, the epic soundtrack, the beautiful graphics and effects, just the whole sweeping, grandiosity of it all. It was just great. It was an amazing game, and I remember the first time I played it, never wanting to put it down. I know that part of the reason that the selection here is limited is twofold. One, that Nintendo has to pay licensing fees, and the second would be that some of these may come out on the virtual console later. Or who knows, they may even get cartridge re-releases in the way that Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask did on the 3DS. We're going to go ahead and go through the RPGs first. Lufia 2. Rise of the Sinistrals. This is a puzzle RPG, and it was pretty brilliant. It had a forward-facing battle system similar to the Dragon Quest series, except that you could see your character in third person. So I guess it was actually closer to Final Fantasy Mystic Quest in that regard. The sprites were huge and beautiful on the battle screen. The storyline. It's one of the few role-playing games for the NES, for the Super Nintendo, that really explored the romantic aspects of it. There's even a wedding, which, you didn't see much of. Final Fantasy 3/6. It kind of danced around the idea of romance, literally, in the scene with Terra's mother and the Esper. But this game delivered. On the subject of games that let you get married, I don't know I'm assuming Nintendo has a healthy relationship with Natsume still. They produce a ton of Harvest Moon games, so this one would have been nice on there too. However, I don't actually know if I would have played it again, because it's such a slog. It's such a grind. I love the story and meeting the characters and getting to know them. I like the quiet little scenes, where you come out on the first snowy day. The festival, the Christmas festival, or whatever it's called. The music in the church. There's just so much. There's so many tiny little beautiful moments in this game, but they're peppered into this thick stew of repetition, and I hate that. But everything else about the game I love. Back on the subject of Square. Released in the US as Final Fantasy II, released in Japan as Final Fantasy IV. This game, while not as... Oh, there goes the autofocus. While not as great as Final Fantasy 3/6, was still really good. The music is great. The boss battles are great. The story's great. It's got... there's nothing lacking from it. It's a great game. And the price... It used to be able to get it for about $20, and then a few years ago it just popped up to 40, and that's about where it is now. But that would be a good one. And also, well, that is an addendum that it would also be nice to have Mystic Quest on here. I know a lot of people think that that game is just a... it's a silly beginner's RPG. It's entry level, but it's charming in that way. And the battles, the sprites they're really adorable. The story's cute. I don't know, it's a good game. I think people give it too much of a hard time. I discussed this one before. Second Densetsu 3, aka Secret of Mana 2. This game, I think, tried to be as big as Chrono Trigger. The scope on this one was really big. There were there's 3 different paths you can take with 3 different main characters. Maybe as many as... How many main characters does this game have? Is it 6? There's a lot of characters in this game. A ton of characters. My favorite is Lise. She has a big spear. I don't really remember any of the storyline, but... Oh, there's also a guy, I think, that transforms into a werewolf, and that's a really cool storyline, too. The only thing I don't like about this and Secret of Mana is that the charge system... You spend the whole game just kind of sneaking around charging your weapons. You're just dragging your feet. It's like you have a limp. You feel a bit hobbled by the fact that you have to charge your weapons to do any real damage, and it takes forever. Let's see, what else? Tetris Attack. This is a repackaging of a game called Panel de Pawn. And Panel de Pawn is a typical sort of match 3 game, but it really executes it well. You can only move horizontally and vertically, and it depends on combos for you to do a lot of damage, or chains. They make a difference between combos and chains. I think in this game that combos means when you get more than 3, and then a chain means, when you get one and you get another and another. I always call them combos, but I guess there's a difference. This is my favorite stacking puzzle game of all time, outside of Tetris. Wario's Woods is so much fun. There's an NES and a Super Nintendo version. I like the Super Nintendo version. The story mode's bigger. There's a lot of really fun characters that you fight against. The music is energizing. The 2-player mode has this great steel bass kind of soundtrack to it. It's very peppy. You play as Toad. You're inside of... It starts off in a tree, and then you play in like a castle. There's different levels, but the main idea is you're in a cylindrical chamber with a swamp at the top. And little animals are inside building up, and you and a fairy have to destroy the animals with bombs. So you're just spending the whole game blowing up tiny forest creatures, which is insane, but it's great fun. I'm positive I had an 8th. I thought I had this list through 10. Did I forget 3 of them? Oh my goodness. This game here. This game is the second in a series of 3 games by Enix. I don't remember what the first one is called. Something with Soul. The third one is Terranigma. But Illusion of Gaia is hands down the best of the 3 games. The story, there's no game on the Super Nintendo with a story as good as this one. Chrono Trigger is great. Final Fantasy 3 is great. But this one blows them out of the water as far as the story goes. The action is kind of Zelda-esque, but the story is just astoundingly good. You're this kid who has to go around world monuments, and you fight with a flute, and you are trying to stop a comet from destroying the Earth with the help of a spirit named Gaia, who you teleport to save your game or to transform into a warrior version or like a blue flaming spirit version of yourself. And it's just, the gameplay itself, it's good. It's kind of standard fare action RPG, but the story around it, again, there's nothing like it. What are these two games? I had written down a post-it. I probably should have kept it, but I accidentally threw it away at work. Help me out here, guys. What are two really great Super Nintendo games? Games that you feel like you couldn't live without. Oh well, I guess it doesn't matter. These 8 games. These 4 here. These 5 here. Oh, that's 3. I guess I forgot how to count. Oh, duh, of course. How did I forget? This beautiful gem. I had so much fun with this game. I didn't own it, but every time I slept over at my friend's house, we would, not every time, but 5 or 6 times, we would play this game for hours. We did the animations, the soundtrack, the music making part of this game. It's so iconic. There are people who have created sound fonts based on it. It'd be neat if they had like a mouse extension. Really what this thing should have come with was a slot that you could buy little packs of, 10 or 15 games. And, just let it be expandable. You may fear that people are going to hack it and put all their ROMs on it, but people are going to do that anyway, so give them an excuse not to. That'd be great. Anyway, I don't remember what the 10th game was, but these are the ones I'm the most passionate about. These games are all so good. Maybe they could have put SimCity on it. That might have been fine. Killer Instinct. Definitely not something terrible like Primal Rage. There are so many horrible, just throwaway license platformers. There was a lot of junk on the Super Nintendo too. In every game system, for every 10 or 20 great games, there's 100 just shovelware trash games. Who needs those? Nobody needs them. Alright, well, thanks for hanging out. It's been nice making a video again after so long, and hopefully I'll make one in the future. Until then, I will see you guys later.